In today's video, I'm going to talk about how there are parts of our personality within us that we are completely unaware of and yet still control and influence our lives. Hi and welcome back to Mental Health Power. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about something known as the shadow or our shadow aspect. So in psychology, this is a well-known term, but the thing that really disturbs me is how, despite this being known in psychology and some self-help and self-development circles, outside of it, this is not common knowledge, and I think this needs to be known by everyone. So essentially, the shadow can be seen as the parts of us that we are not aware of. So specifically, this is because of the way the mind is split into two. So you have the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And I mentioned this in my other videos as well. So the conscious mind is where we mostly experience our mind, where our thinking happens, where we make, you could say, manual decisions, like when we're thinking out loud in our head, when we're visualizing things. And the subconscious mind controls things that are automatic. It controls breathing processes, it controls our habits, that kind of thing. And it controls our subconscious beliefs as well. But what I didn't really speak about is what is actually going on in the subconscious mind, like what is there? So this is where the shadow comes in, because we all have shadows and these all reside in the subconscious mind. And so because the subconscious mind makes up most of our mind, it's said to be 90 to 95% of our mind, it means that most of our mind is inaccessible and unknown to us. And so anything that's referred to as the shadow or a shadow aspect of us is really something that we are not aware of because it's buried in our subconscious. And so this is what happens. And it's through the process of socialization that we have things buried in our subconscious that we're not aware of. So let's say, for example, let's say there's a young boy, and let's say that he's very outspoken, very loud. And let's say he lives in a culture where you don't speak back, where you shouldn't be loud. Children shouldn't be loud, for example. And so let's say he's either directly or indirectly told that. Maybe he's told off, maybe not just his parents, but maybe other family members or people in his community, in his school, also say the same thing. That you don't talk back, you shouldn't be loud, shouldn't be more assertive, kids shouldn't be that way, as an example. Then of course the kid's going to go, oh my God, I shouldn't be like this, is bad. Oh no, what they'll do then, understandably, because we are social creatures, so we have to be accepted by the tribe, whatever tribe that we're in. So we have this aspect of us that's outgoing and loud, but we're told this is bad. So we have to disown it. So what we do is, unconsciously, as a defense mechanism, coping mechanism, we suppress it, we deny it, or pretend it's not there, and we push it down because we have to for social survival, right? This can go further though. You can have somebody who has, let's say, particular talents. Let's say this same person, this same young kid, is really good at, I don't know, dance and singing as well. Let's say they're in a culture where, or in a family where that just doesn't happen. Maybe they're very academically focused, or maybe they're in a culture where that's just seen as not for men, for example. So now, because they have to survive, maybe again they've been treated in a way where they think, well, if I do this, they're going to obviously fear rejection, because a kid is going to be 100% reliant on their parents, on their caregivers. So again, you have this talent, and it gets rejected, and it gets pushed into the subconscious. So essentially, anything, whether it is good or bad, that through the process of socialization is seen as being unacceptable, whether it's good or bad, it doesn't really matter, just seen as unacceptable, gets buried in the subconscious. And so we go through life, we go through the process of living in families, in cultures, in communities, in societies, moving into different groups, whether it's school, whether it's work, it could be so many different places, but especially when we're younger, where we learn that certain things are seen as acceptable and not acceptable. And this will be subjective depending on the culture you're in, the society you're in, the places where you're in, even the time period you're in, right? Some things would have been seen as fine maybe 20, 30 years ago, and now maybe that certain trait is seen as not acceptable, as an example. So all of these things get just buried here in the subconscious. And so then what happens is that all these other aspects that are seen as acceptable, so which are the opposite. So now you've got, okay, I'm not supposed to be loud and what did I say? So yeah, this kid was taught being loud and assertive for a kid is bad. So now they grow up and they're the exact opposite because that's what they've been socialized to believe. So now, this bit which of them which is quiet and just, listens to everything people say, let's just say L for listen, Q for quiet. This is now at the forefront. This is now the part of their personality that is seen as acceptable. So now they identify with it. And then maybe again, for example, okay, so let's say dance and singing was seen as bad. So now they followed what their society has shown them, what their family has shown them, and they followed academic subjects. So now that's what they want to do. That's what they're focused on. And yet these parts of them, they've suppressed and buried, whether it's their likes and dislikes, or whether it's just aspects of their personality, like being assertive and loud or more extroverted. Those are now suppressed, but they haven't vanished. They're actually still there. And so what happens is that these parts of them are almost like mini personalities in and of themselves, like mini parts of them. And so this really creates splits within our mind. So we all have this to certain degrees, where we've had to bury parts of ourselves and disidentify parts of ourselves for social survival. And so these don't disappear. These now, in the subconscious, covertly influence in subtle ways our behaviors. So for example, you can have somebody who maybe was taught that expressing anger is bad. And so that gets buried, but then that anger may find unconscious ways of coming out. So maybe in adulthood, they start finding they get really angry at the smallest of things and they don't know why. But what can happen is people tell them that they're angry, but they don't see themselves as angry because they've disidentified that part of them. So you can see how if someone has anxiety, depression, or anger issues, or like other psychological issues as well, like addictions, this is often pretty much where it's all happening in the subconscious, because there are parts of them that have needs that weren't met, parts of them that have been suppressed, that are looking to be recognized. And so it will do whatever it can to get those needs met, to be recognized, even if it's in unhealthy ways. So you can see how addictions come from this. Let's say, for example, typical one, let's say someone's brought up in a culture where they say men shouldn't be vulnerable, they shouldn't express emotion, or they shouldn't cry, for example, then that will get buried. But that need for vulnerability is still there. So then that may come out in other ways that may be unhealthy. So you can tell if you have lots of buried unconscious shadows if you do things and you don't know why you do them. So if you notice the same patterns of habits emerging, and no matter how hard you try, it still happens, it's entirely possible that's because there is a part of you that gets something out of it. So this is often how addictions happen, because we consciously know we don't want to do something, but then we still do it because a part of us actually does get a need met, but through a covert way. So this is a shadow aspect. Or some people, they seem totally calm and relaxed, and then maybe in one particular situation, this huge amount of anger might come out. And that's because now something in a shadow aspect of them essentially has possessed them and has been triggered. And I know some of these concepts sound really strange. This idea that there can be parts to us that are buried, almost like we have multiple personalities, but it kind of is like that. That's actually what it's like, because we've created a split now within ourselves, and we've chosen to identify with some aspects of us and not with other aspects. So it is like having multiple personalities. It's just we're not always aware that they're influencing us. And so really what you could say is our personalities don't really exist in the way we like to think, because we just don't realize that all these other aspects of us exist. They're all hidden away. So really we only have half a personality or even less, because all these other aspects of us we've learned to reject and suppress. And this is important in understanding your mental health, because you need to understand what all these aspects of you are to be able to fully recover, because there can be a part of you that pulls you down whenever you start recovering. For example, you may have learned as a kid that maybe for various reasons someone can be taught that you can't get what you want in life, for example. So then if you want to get better and heal, but then this belief, this shadow aspect is pulling you back because you can't get what you want in life, is the belief, is this part of the shadow, then somebody will keep self-sabotaging over and over again. Just one example. And so really what we can call this is, what we can say is, what we believe is our personality is actually a false persona that is entirely based on what we've been taught is socially or culturally acceptable. And that's important because exactly what you might need to recover from mental health issues or to uncover limiting beliefs to achieve what you want is likely to be buried in your subconscious, so it's part of your shadow. And so the ways you can tell whether your shadow is coming out is if you notice a particular personality aspect only comes out in very specific situations, and the reaction you're having is disproportionate to what's going on. So let's say, for example, you have somebody who's in a social situation. Let's say, for example, things start going really well and they start making friends, and all of a sudden, for no reason in particular, they start feeling extremely nervous. Even though everything is going really, really well, and they're like, oh my God, I'm making friends. All of a sudden, there's a huge amount of anxiety that comes up and they want to leave. So that reaction, the emotion that comes up, is not proportionate to what's actually happening. It's in fact the opposite of what you'd expect. So what we would say is, well, what is being triggered is a shadow aspect, so something in the subconscious. Okay, so what could we say is the fear that's coming up from this part of them in the subconscious? Well, we'll have to feel the feeling completely and try to remember when have they felt this in the past. Because what they might find is the reason why they're getting scared is because in the past, maybe they made friends and then something happened and they weren't friends anymore. Or maybe they had a caregiver they were close to and then their caregiver like neglected or abandoned them, for example. So the fear stems from their fear of rejection and abandonment because of an aspect of them from the past that is now buried in the subconscious. Or it could be, maybe as a kid, they were taught, oh, you shouldn't have friends for some reason. That can happen. Some kids, maybe some parts of the world, are taught you shouldn't really have friends, focus on your studies. That can happen. So now they're making friends. Oh no, this is bad because I was taught this is bad as a kid. So it's just something to think about. It's something to start looking into. This is a massive topic, so I only wanted to cover it in a very basic way. This is just an introduction. So thank you for watching. If this has helped, click the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Comment below if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.